it's Natalie, and I'm here today with a Technique Tuesday from Cherry on Top. And this month we are focused on grid layouts. Well, grids. It's just the famous grids. So Sarah did a really cool, I think, explosion card using a grid when you fold the paper. I'm going to talk about doing a grid design on a scrapbook layout. So I've pulled out some of the past grid designs that I have done in my portfolio, if you will, and I just wanted to go over a couple of them before I get started on making a new one. So this is what I think of as like a traditional grid, where you have very defined individual pieces, and then they're similar, so they kind of go together with a vibe, and one of the blanks or more will contain your photo. So here I have stamped the same image 5 times, and then my photo of my sweet girl Lola is up here in one area. Now it still goes along with my style. It has, you know, some messy mixed media coming out, but it's a very defined grid. Another thing that I see people doing with grids all the time is sewing. A lot of time I'll see them sew the lines in like a tic-tac-toe board to very clearly define the grid like we did over here. In this one, I actually took the different shapes and I created a grid, removed areas in which I would like to place my photo, and then I went very much outside the grid by embellishing outside the lines, if you will. I kind of colored outside the lines. You're gonna find that's my style when it comes to a grid layout. Let's talk about pocket pages. Pocket pages are a grid, of course. I thought about doing a pocket page, but they're pretty self-explanatory as far as going how to assemble one. There are some good rules to follow as far as, you know, making it pleasing to the eye, when to double up on photos and when not to, things like that. But for the most part, you know, keep things in trios, your visual triangle, you know, repeating elements. So I have a photo of Lola, I have a smaller photo of Lola, I have a photo of Lachlan, a smaller photo of Lachlan crying. I always like to have a journaling square, and again, repeating elements. I stamped some branches here, I've got the glitter here, things like that. For this one, I went with long photos, and I mimicked the other pieces creating the grid in the long format as well. And so we have 3 columns, and they each contain a photo. They each contain paper kind of offsetting the pattern of the photo. And then we go outside the lines again with the florals. So this one is a little bit deceiving at first because you think, oh, it's not even a grid, maybe. It's more of a collage, if you will, of paper. But to me, that's still a grid. Every piece has a straight line. So we've cut different pattern papers and they're piecing together in a undefined shape. I will give you that. But my photos are all squares, and then each of the piece of paper kind of lines up nicely with those squares. And that is still a grid, even though it doesn't even have a defined shape. It's not a rectangle, it's not a square, it's just kind of a like blob. But all of the pieces form like a puzzle to create a type of a grid. This one is used with tags, and I cut the photo to be the same size and type of vibe as the tags are going, and then they're just kind of haphazardly. Even this one's going up the opposite direction, and then I'm filling in blanks with different embellishments or the title and things like that. So you don't have to think of a grid as being very rigid and very in the middle of the page, it's 6 blocks and do this. You know, you can kind of think outside the box, keep your vibe kind of wonky, kind of whimsical, and still have a grid layout going on. So today we are going to make a fall grid layout. So let's get started. So I have 6 photos here today. A grid layout is a really great way to get multiple photos on a page. I've pulled out my fall 2024 cherry box, which is full of Sizzix and Tim Holtz things. And then I've pulled out a few of my stash items. Those are the Simple Stories collection from last year. That is the Spice collection by 49 and Market from last year, but there's still a ton of it left in the store. Those are Minty Chippies. Spoiler alert, they don't make it on the page. I pulled out this from 49th and Market Spice. It's going to be the foundations page, and the other side is a more solid, and this is a nice like watercolor wash. Pull out these wood grain panels from the Tim Holtz like collection that is in the cherry box. Lola gets moved to the top because she's always the star of the show. And I just have a few of these photos are just things that I took around the fall season in 2022. So it's going to be just a compilation of like some fall vibes that are going on. I pull out the Tim Holtz black cardstock, and I have this weathered wood distress oxide spray, which I think they said is brand new. So I'm going to use that on part of the cardstock. And then I just pulled out a couple of mica sprays that are also Tim Holtz, and bronze and like a copper color to just give me 3 different colors of leaves. So I'm going to spray these onto the black cardstock. I did not put any gesso on this, and I will say it handled the liquid pretty well, but I wouldn't have put any more. My bronze wasn't spraying for some reason, but actually I think it's called tarnished brass. So you can see it's a little bubbly, but really, I mean, it held up really well. And I allowed that to dry. It's really nice on the black background. The sparkle and shimmer really shines and shows up well. I added a little bit of distress oxide soot spray. So this is different than the one that came in the cherry box, because the one that came in the cherry box is called Distress Spritz, and the black one I just did is Distress Oxide Spray. So they're different. I think the Spritz just has the shimmer in it. And then I'm using a Dilutions white linen ink spray, which really holds nicely with the white. It doesn't soak into the paper to give a white splatter. I'm pulling out the Sizzix tool set that comes in the cherry box, and I'm going to use it to shape these leaves. So you can see I ran these leaf die cuts that come in the cherry box through with the different colored spritzed cardstock. And now I'm just using the larger of the rollerball tools, and I'm just running it down the middle of these leaves on top of this foam pad that comes in this Sizzix tool set. And it really just kind of helps the leaves curl up a little bit. It gives them dimension. And so it helps to not have to kind of go around on the page and lift them up by hand or with another little tool, because I'm kind of bending them and molding them before I adhere them down to the page. So I'm a big fan of this, and it was actually super satisfying, especially in the small ones. You just like roll that little ball down the middle of it, and it just like curled up. It was really fun. So you can see I have all of those leaves over there on the right, just waiting to be put on my page. I decided to move that panel and turn it the other way so you don't see the words. And then I'm going to go into this rub-on page. It's a 6x8 rub-on collection from the Spice 49 and Market. And I thought that was going to be my title, but I decided that it's really not sufficient for a title. So I'm going to make a new one. So I pull out another piece of that Tim Holtz cardstock, and I'm going to just cut it to fit inside this embossing folder that comes in the kit as well. But I'm going to use the other page. So I'm going to spritz this cardstock just very lightly with some water so that it doesn't rip when I run it through my Big Shot. And you can see that it gives just such a nice image on both sides, really, of this awesome wood grain embossing folder. But I'm going to use the opposite side. I'm going to use the cardstock, or the craft side, sorry. And then I decided to run some Distress Oxide ink over the top, so it really brings out the nice wood image. And then just add a little bit more of that white spritz and splatters on top of it to kind of mimic the look on the leaves. So I cut out the word fall vibes. Now, when you run it back through to cut the die cuts, it sometimes loses like the texture of the embossing folder. But I'm okay with that because I rubbed that ink over it, you still get to see the pattern, which is really cool. And so I'm really happy with how those leaves and the alphas look. And so again, the title is going to be Fall Vibes. I did cut out the word or the number 2022, but I end up not using that. So I did have a little bit of a hard time figuring out where I would like the title to be on the page, however. So I decided to remove the wood panel, and I'm going to go in and just kind of replace that space with this solid, or not solid white, but it's like a white background piece, and it has the fall leaves and it says autumn on it, because that helps to like brighten up the page. And then also just kind of takes the bulk away. I'm going to use those wood panels for some other type of project I decide. I did rough up the edges here and then ink them up with that same brown ink I used on the alphas. And that just helps pop off the page. I do want to, it's Distress Oxide ink takes a little bit longer to dry. So I do set that aside to dry, and because from experience, if you like set it back down on top of your page, you can get that ink on your page, maybe in spots that you don't want it. So I did let that dry, and I did the same all the way around the white border of all my photos. I just dressed the edges and then added that brown ink. So I've added adhesive to the back of these, and I'm just kind of gently placing them around the page before I like stick them down hard to commit, making sure that I get my my grid in the pattern that I want. And I'm really happy with how this looks. I did decide to pop up Lola, again, star of the show, on some foam tape. I still struggle though with this title, but these skinny alphas, which again are from the fall cherry box, are to me really conducive to running the opposite way on the page, like than what you read. So I end up, in a second, you'll see, I'll turn the word fall to run up and down next to that far left photo. And I'm really happy with how that looks. And you will, if you look back at those other layouts that I talked about before, I do that quite often on my grid layouts, is kind of use them to run my title in different directions. And I just think it makes it like fun and whimsical. So I'm very happy with how that ends up looking. And, you know, I have some negative space in between those photos, which usually isn't a great thing. I remember when I was on the yearbook staff in high school, we definitely didn't want to have like trapped space is what we called it. But in this case, I knew that I was going to fill it in with some icons and things that had pulled out. So I was okay with it. So I cut apart this little frame to put on the side of Lola there, and I'm going to pop up this pumpkin as well to meet flush with her photo there. I want to pull out that little white thing that says the richest season of the soul. So I love that right underneath I love that we live in a world of Octobers. Obviously, all of these photos were taken in October. So now I'm also going around and adding in those Tim Holtz leaves. And I just love that dark pop of color that it's giving it multiple places over the page. The dimension is great. So I've run fall up the left side of that photo. So now I'm going to stick down vibes, but I do anchor it on another like dark brown piece that I pulled from the Spice collection, the ephemera bits. And then I pulled out a few of the pumpkins from the laser cut images. I'm going to pop them up on foam tape as well. So we have multiple, we have the one photo popped up on foam tape, and then we're going to have all of the pumpkins popped up on foam tape. So we kind of, again, have that repeating element that kind of brings cohesion to our page. I'm going to stick that down with extra adhesive. That's a chipboard piece from the Simple Stories collection. Just grouping my leaves together, giving this piece the same treatment as my photos, just inking up the edges with the brown. And I pulled out my super skinny foam tape from Waffle Flower Crafts because this one is really skinny, but I did want it to be popped up. I think it will help it be distinguished from that similar color paper that it's going to be sitting atop of. I had so much fun creating this fun, it's a grid design layout, but it's still, nothing is too perfect for me. I like, I love a good distressed page. I don't like to be too matchy. So this is totally in my vibe. So you have your straight edges, you have your rectangular photos, but you still are kind of in a organic shape. I put the other part of that tag down there. It kind of links those two photos together. And it also kind of has a little bit of an arrow where I'm going to put my journaling down below. So everything just seems to kind of fall into place once we start putting everything together on the page. I add another strip down there, something about crisp autumn weather. And then I have 2 pumpkins. I need to add one more down here at the bottom, have a nice visual triangle. So that's what I was showing you. And then I go in and I start counting my leaves. And right now I only have 6 clusters of leaves. I love a good odd number. Odd numbers are pleasing to the eye. So I'm going to add one more cluster of leaves. They're going to be near that last pumpkin I just placed. And we're going to call it a layout. I hope you're inspired by my grid design. I hope that you have gotten some good tips. Let me know if you have any questions. And if you like what you see, you can go follow me over here at Natalie Dill on YouTube. And make sure to check out the blog too on A Cherry on Top. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye, y'all.